so with OpenAI, this is a sort of second chance for him to reimagine what the future of devices look like, what the future of hardware looks like, and maybe there's a way to benefit society.
Hello from New York. I'm Ellie Austin and you're watching Fortune Daily. So if you've been on social media at all recently, you've no doubt seen coverage of the Lindsay Clancy trial. Clancy, a former Labour and delivery nurse from Massachusetts, is on trial for the death of her 3 young children, Cora, Dawson and Callan, who died in 2023. Clancy has pleaded not guilty to 3 first-degree murder charges. So the central legal question at the heart of this trial is whether postpartum psychosis made her not criminally responsible for the deaths. I'm not going to speculate about the outcome of the trial, which is due to move to closing arguments imminently. But instead, I've been thinking about what the huge reaction to this case has taught us. Well, hundreds of supporters, primarily women, have gathered outside the court in recent days, all dressed in pink, in solidarity with Lindsay. When interviewed on TV, these supporters emphasize that they are not there to minimize the horrific deaths of the Clancy children in any way. Instead, they want to draw attention to what they see as critical flaws in women's mental health care, particularly during that vulnerable postpartum period. Indeed, on the stand, Clancy's former mother-in-law testified that Lindsay was, quote, begging for help before her children's deaths. Whatever its outcome, the trial paints a picture of fractured systems, of brief provider visits, and of a lack of specialized training, leaving vulnerable new mothers without proper help. It's a complete and utter tragedy that it took the deaths of 3 children for this issue to hit the national consciousness. But hopefully, the legacy of this trial will be that maternal mental health is finally seen as core healthcare and an area in urgent need of research and resources, rather than a niche issue cloaked in shame. Next on Fortune Daily, OpenAI enters the hardware market and possibly the courthouse in the process. Fortune Tech correspondent Sebastian Herrera joins me to share the latest on Apple's trade secret theft lawsuit against the AI company. Also, a huge development in skin cancer prevention has sent treatment hopes and Moderna stock through the roof. News editor Catherina Gioino has the report. And finally, the great wealth transfer has officially begun, and associate editor Sydney Lake tells us why that's causing a huge problem for some nonprofits. More Fortune Daily ahead. Sebastian, hello, and thank you for joining us from San Francisco. It's so great to see you. So I want to talk about a piece of your reporting about how Jony Ive, arguably one of Apple's 2 most famous figures ever, alongside Steve Jobs, is now working with OpenAI, one of Apple's biggest competitors. So give us a bit of context to start. Who is Jony Ive and why does this matter?
Yeah, besides Steve Jobs, Jony Ive is probably the most famous Apple employee ever. He worked side by side with Steve Jobs for years, and together they designed some of the most iconic Apple products that we know. That includes their first computers, that includes, of course, the first iPhone, that includes the Apple Watch. And so Jony Ive is known to bring the design and feel that we know for our Apple products to us, to the consumers. He's responsible for the curvature, the clean lines of the iPhone, the way that they look and feel. And so, he's a very famous person from Apple. And he left the company in 2019. At the time that he left, he had really been more and more disengaged with the company ever since Steve Jobs died in 2011. That was really his running mate. And after he passed away, Jony Ive slowly kind of sort of began less and less to be involved with Apple. And so in 2019, he left to form his own design firm, which is called Love From. And then, soon after that, he partnered with OpenAI, and now together with OpenAI, they're building hardware products for this AI era that we're in.
Tell us a bit more about the products they're building, and then I want to get into the reaction to this story.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're all waiting to see what OpenAI and Jony Ive have cooking up. A lot of people still believe in the tech industry that you can't just have an AI product talking to us. You still have to tether it to a phone. The belief is that a phone could still be part of what Jony Ive is still working on, this time with OpenAI instead of Apple. But what we're expecting is a family of products from OpenAI and Jony Ive, and that's supposed to come out beginning next year, 2027. The reason why it's such a big deal is because here you have Apple's famed designer now working with a rival, OpenAI, but still working on products that could be revolutionary for all we know.
I can't imagine that Apple would be too thrilled if it was a phone, given their iconic status with the smartphone. Tell us a bit about how Apple has responded more broadly to this relationship between Jony Ive and Sam Altman.
Apple takes its devices and its proprietary hardware really seriously. They're known to sue people and companies that they feel is in any way copying them or trying to go after them. And that's exactly what they're doing in this case as well. They recently sued OpenAI, and they're claiming that OpenAI stole trade secrets through Jony Ive's hardware firm called IO Products. Now, Ive is not named in the lawsuit itself, but they are suing OpenAI and former Apple employees for trade theft. And so they're alleging that these employees took secrets on how to build Apple products to OpenAI. They, infamously in the lawsuit say that they were showing Apple devices in interviews with OpenAI, and taking information from Apple computers. Apple is essentially trying to slow down what OpenAI is working on with Ive, and maybe they'll be successful with that. At the moment, you have these two tech giants going at it for the future of hardware. And it's been a very sort of intriguing story in Silicon Valley.
What does your reporting say about why Apple decided not to name Ive in the lawsuit? Is there a degree of strategy around that?
They probably are doing that to sort of protect his legacy in some way at Apple. But it's definitely a very awkward thing for all parties involved. And I think Ive notably hasn't made it public comment.
There was a really interesting line in your piece where you suggested that Jony Ive might feel a degree of guilt for the societal ills, some of them that have come from the development of the iPhone, which is actually a subject we talked about yesterday on this show. Tell me a bit about that and how teaming up with OpenAI to produce this hardware might assuage some of that guilt.
Some of our reporting that we did with my colleague Emily is that I feels a sense of guilt on what the iPhone has become, and what that means is that we've all seen the reports of the addiction to our phones that we have as a society, and to social media. And so who's known as a person who's deeply cares about the things that he builds, he reportedly just doesn't feel great about all the consequences for society that the iPhone has brought upon us. And so with OpenAI, this is a sort of second chance for him to reimagine what the future of devices look like, what the future of hardware looks like, and maybe there's a way to benefit society through what he's building, whether that's AI that can help us out in our homes, whether it's with people that are blind or have some sort of handicap. It's a huge opportunity, but it comes with a lot of responsibility, just like the iPhone did. And I think when Ive and Jobs were building the iPhone, I don't think they could imagine, the impact that it's had on all of our lives and how it has become really the main thing that connects all of us around the world to each other. And some of that has been positive, some of that has been negative.
What does this mean for other AI companies, Sebastian, and how they think about entering the hardware space?
Yeah, every company that matters in Silicon Valley is trying to figure out the next form factor for AI. And what that means is that these different tech companies, they want to be the ones who deliver us our AI in whatever way is best. And I think a lot of companies like OpenAI or like Meta, for example, they don't want to have to rely on Apple to deliver their AI to consumers. If they can create glasses or other sort of wearables where their AI can live on and that can be the next hot product, they would love to have that reality. And so, for example, Meta is a really great example of that. They have their Meta Ray-Ban glasses. They're smart glasses that have cameras on them. Then you can talk to the AI, you can listen to music. And they've really figured out a way to have a product that's been pretty popular among consumers and has been a way to introduce consumers to their AI. It's an arms race to who can figure out how AI is best delivered to the consumer, whether it's Meta, whether it's OpenAI. There's Chinese companies working on this as well. Everyone's trying to figure it out, and there's millions, there's billions at stake here.
Sebastian, thank you so much. We'll be watching this space to see how this develops and come back and tell us more about this lawsuit if and as it evolves. Where can people find more of your reporting?
Yeah, they can check out more of my articles on fortune.com. And thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, Sebastian. Speak soon. Next up, Anatomy of a Deal with my colleague, Cat Gioino. Kat, I want to talk to you about this big announcement that's recently come out from Moderna that it is developing a cancer vaccine that could drastically improve treatment rates for skin cancer. Specifically, I have to say skin cancer runs in my family, so I'm very invested in this. Tell us how this vaccine works.
It's in partnership with Merck. So they took a case study of around 1,100 people who happen to have melanoma, and they took out their tumors. So these are all people who have been treated already, they've surgically removed their tumors, and they've caused the vaccine to be grown, basically, and treatable per person. So it's personalized. They take the cells from the tumor, and they make each vaccine per person, and they've found a reduction in about any kind of recurrence, any kind of metastasization of this cancer from happening again.
Wow, and this is mRNA technology, which came into the public lexicon, as we will all remember, during the COVID pandemic.
During COVID, yeah, and again, with Moderna, no less. So now Moderna and Merck are making this cancer vaccine that could potentially really save people's lives.
Moderna's stock rose very sharply in response to this news last week. Tell us a bit about the machinations of why that is.
It's actually insane. It went up 100%. So it went from a $25 billion market cap to $50 billion almost within like 3 hours of the entire news dropping. Merck's also rose. And as a result of just the entire idea of vaccines now curing cancer, everything across the board has also risen. So Eli Lilly and all these other firms have also been rising in terms of stocks.
So Merck and Moderna did a sort of joint venture on this vaccine.
Absolutely. So Merck has their own entire vaccine. It's called Keytruda. This was actually part in place with the Moderna Merck vaccine, which is called an antigen.
Okay, quite a mouthful.
Yeah, quite a mouthful.
Quite a mouthful.
I'm sure I mispronounced it. But the two of them together, they treated about half the control group with both of these vaccines together, and they treated the other half with just the Keytruda, which is Merck's own vaccine. And they found a reduction in terms of any kind of recurrence or any kind of metastasization. I think the stats were 49% reduction in recurrence and a 56% reduction in metastasization of these cancer cells.
With the joint vaccine.
With the joint
vaccine.
Yeah.
So what assumptions are investors now making about cancer vaccines and the future of cancer treatment?
I mean, melanoma is a high risk. It's like the deadliest form of skin cancer you can have out there. And the fact that they found a way to really cure it and really, well, let's say like found a way to reduce the recurrence and also any kind of ill effects that happens with this cancer, insane. And as a result of that, investors are now doubling down on this. And you're seeing this across the entire health industry. You're seeing this across the whole entire longevity space. People are thinking mRNA has like such an amazing potential possibility. And this is the first time that we've ever seen something that's personalized really like drive through it.
What should we look out for in the coming years when it comes to the evolution of cancer treatment? Because it's been this this unattainable goal for such a long time, the prevention, the curing of cancer, it feels like it could be in touching distance. Is that true?
Potential. I mean, like, think about it this way. Most cancer treatments, like chemotherapy, radiology, all this is indiscriminate. It affects your whole entire body. Yeah. Yes, it affects those cancer-causing cells, but this is personalized. So the actual, like, added benefit of this is that you are not getting those ill effects of, let's say, throwing up or like hair loss that comes with chemotherapy or other kinds of cancer treatment, because it's only affecting those personal cells that are causing cancer.
Kat, this is so interesting. We will watch very intently to see how this story develops. Remind people where they can find more of your reporting.
Yeah, go on fortune.com.
Next up, the business of luxury with Sydney Lake.
The great wealth transfer, it's something that people have been anticipating for years, decades, really. It is the 124 trillion great wealth transfer is fully underway, but nonprofits are paralyzed by how to chase millennials' newfound wealth. And it's essentially as the baby boomer generation starts to age out and phase out, the younger generations, particularly millennials and some of Gen Z, will inherit all of that baby boomer wealth. So kind of the trend behind this is the idea of, for decades, baby boomers have really been the primary philanthropists in society. They're the ones who hold the most wealth, they have the most disposable income. But as this great wealth transfer starts to really move and transpire and a lot of money is changing hands, the idea is philanthropy as we know it is fundamentally going to change. But what's actually interesting from the data is at this point, millennials are actually the most active generation in terms of philanthropy and volunteerism, being involved with nonprofits, but still baby boomers are the ones who quite literally have the most bang for their buck. So nonprofit organizations are really having to rethink, hey, how are we going to attract a brand new generation of people who we really haven't been chasing for a long time? Because for decades, baby boomers have largely been, making connections to certain causes, certain organizations, but millennials haven't had the disposable income really to donate to kind of their nonprofits and philanthropies of choice, at least at the same scale. These are like mega gifts, like hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars. Millennials, as we all know, we're all kind of struggling out here. The economy's tough, not as much disposable income. So it'll be interesting to see the wealth quite literally move. It could be across the country, it could be from city to city, organization to organization, kind of once the money itself changes hands.
That's it for Fortune Daily. I'm Ellie Austin. Please remember to like, subscribe, and let us know what you thought of today's episode. I'll see you in the comments.